All right, so get this today. We're diving deep, and I mean deep, into the world of spot welding.
Ooh, spot welding. Always a good time.
Right. Honestly, before I dug into this RoleCatcher guide, I thought it was just sparks and noise, you know?
It's funny how those misconceptions happen. People don't realize it's the backbone of so many industries. It's essential, really.
No kidding. The guide lays out how it all works, like using electrical currents to fuse metal together.
And it's not just about the sparks themselves, but the precision involved. It's about understanding the metal, the current, the timing.
You're making it sound kind of complex, actually.
It is complex, but that's why it's a skilled trade. It's not something just anyone can pick up. It takes training, practice, and frankly, a bit of talent.
Which I guess explains why the guide talks about those pros and cons so frankly. Like, yeah, the demand is there, but it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Exactly. It can be physically demanding, sometimes risky, and let's be honest, some of the tasks are repetitive. You're going to be in certain positions for a while, and that can take a toll on the body.
So it's not just about knowing how to spot weld, but also being able to handle the physicality of it day in and day out.
You got it. And then there's the environment. It's not always what people picture,
Yeah, the guide surprised me there. I was imagining like a dark and dingy factory.
which, to be fair, is sometimes the case. But it can also be a high-tech manufacturing plant with climate control and all the bells and whistles, or even a construction site where you're out in the elements.
So the takeaway is it's not just one size fits all when it comes to the work environment.
Exactly, and that's something anyone considering this field needs to research. What kind of setting do they see themselves thriving in? Because that can make all the difference.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got the skills, you're okay with the physical demands, you've found a work environment that suits you. Is it just the same thing day after day, or is there room to grow?
Oh, there's definitely room to grow. In fact, one of the things I appreciated about RoleCatcher's Guide is how it breaks down the career progression you've got, your entry level, then junior, then experienced, and finally senior spot welder.
It's like a video game, leveling up your welding skills.
I like that analogy. But seriously, each stage comes with more responsibility, more complex tasks, and of course, usually a bump in pay.
Okay, so paint me a picture. Let's say you've been at it a while. You've reached that experienced spot welder level. What does your day-to-day look like?
Well, for starters, you're not just following instructions anymore. You're reading blueprints, interpreting designs, maybe even troubleshooting problems that pop up.
So it becomes as much about problem solving as it is about the actual welding itself.
Exactly. And the guide mentioned something interesting about this stage. They say experienced spot welders often need to understand different types of welding, not just spot welding.
Really? I thought spot welding was its own thing, like you specialize in that.
You do, but here's the thing. Understanding how other welding processes work, like MIG, TIG, even stick welding,
Yeah.
it gives you this broader perspective, like being fluent in different welding languages.
So it's like the more you know, the more valuable you are.
Exactly. And the more you can contribute to a team, especially when things get tricky, and let me tell you, in welding, things can definitely get tricky.
And that's where those certifications the guy talks about could come in handy, right? Like proof you know your stuff.
Absolutely. Things like the AWS certified welder or the certified resistance welding technician, they show employers you're serious about this.
Like a stamp of approval. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this person knows how to weld. They're not messing around.
Exactly. And it can open doors to better opportunities, higher pay, all that good stuff.
So you've aced the certifications, you're fluent in welding languages.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get down to brass tacks. What does a spot welder actually do all day? I mean, at each of those career levels.
Right, because it's one thing to talk about it theoretically, but another to get your hands dirty, literally.
Exactly. So starting with entry level, the guide makes it clear this isn't just about zapping metal for fun.
No, sir. Even at that stage, there's a lot of precision involved, a lot of following specific instructions.
They talked about setting up the machines, loading the metal pieces, monitoring the welding as it happens. Is that right?
All of that and more. Don't forget about safety protocols, because you're dealing with some serious heat.
That's where those apprenticeships the guide mentioned come in, right? Learning by doing under the watchful eye of someone who's been there, welded that.
Exactly. You can read all the manuals in the world, but nothing beats that hands-on experience, feeling the timing, the pressure, the heat.
So it's about developing those instincts, that sixth sense for how the metal is going to react.
You got it. And as you progress to that junior spot welder level, you're not just following instructions anymore. You're starting to understand the why behind them.
So looking at blueprints, figuring out the best way to approach a weld based on the design.
Right, and maybe even helping to train those new entry-level welders, passing on that hard-won knowledge.
It's like becoming the welding sensei, guiding the next generation.
That's like it. But you're right, there's a mentorship element that starts to emerge at that stage.
And then things get really wild at the experience level, right? Collaborating with engineers like we talked about before.
Now you're cooking. That's where your deep understanding of the welding process really shines because you're not just executing a plan, you're helping to shape it.
So if a weld isn't behaving the way it should, you're the one they call in to figure out why.
Exactly. You're like a welding detective using your knowledge to crack the case.
And probably feeling pretty darn good when you do. It's like, yeah, I'm not just a welder. I'm a problem solver, a lifesaver, a hero.
I wouldn't go that far, but there's definitely a sense of satisfaction in knowing your expertise is making a real difference.
Okay, so you've climbed that mountain. You're at the top of your game. What's next? Retirement.
Yeah.
Sipping lemonade on a beach somewhere.
Some people might, but for others, they reach that senior spot welder level and find a whole new set of challenges.
Like what? What does a senior spot welder even do?
Think big picture, overseeing entire projects, managing teams of welders, ensuring quality control is top-notch, maybe even training the trainers, those welding senseis we talked about.
So it becomes less about the hands-on welding and more about leadership, strategy, making sure everything runs smoothly.
Exactly. You're responsible for not just your own work, but for the work of an entire team or even a whole department. The buck stops with you.
That's a lot of pressure, but also a lot of potential, right? To really shape the future of welding at your company.
Absolutely. And to mentor that next generation of welders, to pass on your skills and knowledge, and maybe, just maybe, inspire a few more welding detectives along the way.
It's like they say, it takes a village to raise a child, but in this case, it takes a team of welders to get the job done right.
There you go. And that's what makes this whole field so fascinating. You've got the tradition, the craftsmanship, the raw skill, but then you've got this layer of technology constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And speaking of technology, we've danced around it a bit, but let's address the elephant in the room. Automation. Is it coming for the welders' jobs? What's the deal with robots in welding?
It's a valid question, one that a lot of people are asking these days, but the guide actually had a pretty interesting take on it. It's not about robots replacing humans entirely.
Oh, so it's not like those sci-fi movies where the robots take over and we're all out of work.
Not quite. It's more about robots becoming another tool in the welder's arsenal. Think of it like this. Instead of replacing the welder, the robot is augmenting their capabilities.
Augmenting. So like giving them superpowers.
Laughing. In a way, yes. But seriously, the robots are really good at those repetitive, high-precision tasks. They can work for hours on end without getting tired or making mistakes.
So what's left for the human welders to do? Just sit back and watch the robots work.
Not at all. Someone still needs to program those robots to make sure they're welding correctly, to troubleshoot any problems that arise. And when those robots need maintenance or repair, guess who gets called in?
The trusty human welder.
Exactly. It's about working together, combining the strengths of both humans and robots.
So it's less about robots stealing jobs and more about robots creating new opportunities for skilled workers.
Now you're getting it. Those who can adapt to these new technologies, who can work alongside robots, they're the ones who are going to thrive in this field. It's about being a lifelong learner.
It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. Welding is still welding, it's just the tools are evolving.
Well said. And that adaptability, that willingness to learn and grow, that's what will always set successful welders apart, robots or no robots.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another deep dive in the books. We started by talking about sparks and metal, and we ended up talking about robots, automation, and the future of work.
It's all connected. And it just goes to show, no matter what field you're interested in, it's always worth digging deeper, exploring the nuances, and embracing the ever-changing landscape of skills and technology.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
So until next time, keep those sparks flying and those robots in check.